Blood dripped from Ambassador Orion Voss's fingertips as he clutched the single star bloom. The delicate violet petals shimmered with an inner light, each one representing hours of painstaking genetic cultivation. He had stolen it from the most secure botanical vault on Earth, and now 5 warships from the Nylari Empire hung in orbit, their weapons trained on humanity's homeworld. "You have exactly 1 chance," spoke High Commander Lyrissanda Namericor through the holographic projection. Her crystalline skin reflected rainbow patterns across the negotiation chamber. "Return Her Majesty or witness the extinction of your species." Orion tried not to tremble. Diplomatic training hadn't prepared him for this. Representing 8 billion, lives against an interstellar empire that had conquered 17 star systems in the last century. "High Commander, I believe we can reach an understanding," he said, voice steadier than his hands. "But first I must insist you explain what you mean by Her Majesty. No human has taken your Empress." Lyrisande's laugh cut like glass. "Feigned. Ignorance will not save you. Our bioscanners detected the royal genetic signature on your planet 3 Earth days ago. The Empress Cytheria disappeared from her chamber simultaneously." Orion glanced down at the star bloom in his hand. "The genetic cultivation project, the anomalous readings in the lab. Could it be possible? May I approach?" he asked, holding up the flower. The Nylari guards flanking Lyrisanda raised their phase weapons, but she waved them down with a 6-fingered hand. "Explain yourself, human." 3 days ago, our botanical scientists achieved something unprecedented. A perfect cross-pollination, with a sample recovered from a meteorite that landed in the Pacific Ocean last year. Orion stepped forward. "The result was this, what we call a star bloom." Lyrisanda's eyes widened, their opalescent surface catching the light. "Impossible. Our scientists noted unusual properties, energy signatures unlike anything in our database. The flower responds to thought patterns, it's sentient." The chamber fell silent. Orion extended his bleeding hand, offering the star bloom. 3 drops of crimson slid down the stem. "In our culture," he continued, "flowers are offered as gestures of peace, of beauty amid destruction. I don't know if your Empress is somehow connected to this bloom, but I offer it freely, with the hope that blood need not be the only thing spilled today." Lyrisande approached cautiously, her movements liquid and precise. When she stood before Orion, she towered 2 feet above him, her exoskeleton gleaming. "You cut yourself to retrieve it," she observed. "The vault's security measures," Orion admitted. "DNA locked. I'm not authorized for that section." A strange expression crossed Lyrisande's alien features, something like respect. "You risked execution. For unauthorized access to save your world, I would have risked more." As Lyrisande reached for the star bloom, it pulsed with light, responding to her proximity. The petals unfurled further, revealing a center that glowed like captured starlight. "This is not merely her connection," Lyrisande whispered. "This is her incarnation." The flower levitated from Orion's palm, hovering between human and alien, bridging 2 civilizations that had been moments from annihilation. "Her Majesty chooses the form of her rebirth," Lyrisande explained, awe evident in her voice. "Once every 10,000 years. Never before has she chosen an alien world." The star bloom rotated slowly, its light bathing both their faces. "Ambassador Voss," Lyrisande said formally, "you have not stolen our Empress. You have been chosen as her guardian." Empress Cytheria's transformation began at midnight. Orion sat cross-legged on the observatory floor, the star bloom floating inches above a specially designed containment field. Behind him, Earth scientists and military officials watched through reinforced glass. Before him, Lyrisande and her honor guard maintained a reverent vigil. "How long will this take?" Orion whispered. "Time is meaningless in the embryonic phase," Lyrisande replied. "The last rebirth cycle lasted 17 of your Earth years." Admiral Pax Indira's voice crackled through Orion's earpiece. 17 years of alien warships in our orbit is unacceptable, Ambassador. Find a solution." Orion didn't respond. The star bloom had begun rotating faster, its glow intensifying until watching it directly became impossible. Fractals of light spiraled outward, sketching impossible geometries across the observatory walls. She speaks. Lyrisanda gasped, dropping to one knee. Orion felt nothing at first then, a presence, gentle but vast, brushing against his consciousness. Not words exactly, but concepts, emotions, memories not his own, recognition, gratitude, purpose. I feel her, Orion said. She's thanking me? Lyrisanda nodded. The Empress chose you. Blood offerings are sacred to the Nylari. Your sacrifice to protect the bloom demonstrated worthiness. The light pulsing from the flower coalesced, forming a spectral shape. Humanoid but clearly alien, with elongated limbs and features that seemed to shift like liquid crystal. Constraint, impatience, acceleration. She wishes to expedite the rebirth, Lyrisanda translated, astonishment evident in her voice. This is unprecedented. The apparition turned toward Orion, extending a luminous appendage toward his still bandaged hand. He hesitated, then reached out. When they touched, pain lanced up his arm, not unpleasant but intense like electricity finding a path through his nervous system. Voss, Admiral Indira shouted through the comm. Break contact immediately. But Orion couldn't move. Memories flooded his mind. Star systems beyond human navigation, civilizations risen and fallen, countless rebirths across millennia. He experienced Cytherea's journey through the cosmos as a spore, drifting until Earth's gravity pulled her, down until human hands cultivated her essence, understanding, convergence, evolution. She chose Earth deliberately, Orion gasped, struggling to translate the vast download of information. The Nylari Empire has grown stagnant. She seeks new genetic material, new perspectives. Lyrisanda's head snapped up. Heresy. No, Orion said. Evolution. Your civilization has reached its zenith under her previous incarnation. She seeks to incorporate humanity's adaptability, our creativity, our defiance, persistence, hope, our refusal to accept limitations, he finished. The spectral figure grew more substantial, features resolving into something between human and Nylari, crystalline skin over a recognizably humanoid form. Her eyes opened, revealing galaxies swirling in their depths. Guardian Voss speaks truth. The Empress's voice resonated throughout the chamber, both audible and psychic. The rebirth accelerates because time grows short. The harbingers approach. Lyrisand paled. The ancient enemy? Here, within 3 stellar cycles. The Empress turned to Orion. Your species possesses what mine has lost, the capacity for radical innovation. Together, we might survive what comes. Admiral Indira's voice came through again. Ambassador, what's happening? Orion looked at the ethereal being before him, then at the Nylari commander. I believe we're discussing an alliance, Admiral, one that might save both our civilizations. The Bastion of Eternal Light, flagship of the Nylari fleet, made Earth's largest spacecraft look like children's toys. Orion stood on the observation deck watching his homeworld shrink to a blue marble as they accelerated toward the heliosphere's edge. Having doubts, Guardian? Orion turned to find Empress Cytherea beside him. 3 weeks into her rebirth, she had stabilized into her new form. 7 feet tall, her body a perfect fusion of crystalline Nylari physiology and human flexibility. Light rippled beneath her translucent skin with each movement. Not doubts, Orion replied. Concerns. Half of Earth's nations still oppose this alliance. My own government only agreed because the alternative was extinction, Cytherea finished. The harbingers do not negotiate. They consume all resources, all knowledge, all life. Orion nodded. So you've shown us. But asking humanity to share, its genetic code, its technology, is asking much, she acknowledged. As is revealing the defensive capabilities of an empire that has conquered 17 systems. Exactly. Trust requires time. Time we lack. Cytherea gestured, conjuring a holographic display of the solar system. Beyond Neptune's orbit, A red marker pulsed. The advanced scout has already entered your system. The main hive follows close behind. A door hissed open behind them. Lyrisanda entered, accompanied by Orion's Earth counterpart Dr. Kata Zhang, lead xenogeneticist from the United Earth Council. The preliminary fusion trials show promise, Dr. Zhang reported, brushing back her silver-streaked hair. Human adaptability. Genes successfully bonded with Nilari crystalline structures in 87% of samples. And the weaponry integration? Lyrisanda asked. Less successful, Orion admitted. Our propulsion systems aren't compatible with your phase technology. The power requirements. A deafening alarm cut him off. The observation deck illuminated with emergency lighting as officers rushed to battle stations. Contact, a Nilari officer shouted. Object approaching at relativistic speed. Cytheria moved with impossible grace to the command interface. Scout vessel confirmed. Emergency protocols initiated. The main view screen activated, showing a shape that defied description. Organic yet mechanical, a writhing mass of tentacles, surrounding a core of pulsing dark energy. It's beautiful, Dr. Zhang whispered. It is death, Lyrisanda corrected. And it has scanned us. The object suddenly accelerated, changing course directly toward the bastion. Evasive maneuvers, Lyrisanda commanded. The massive warship pivoted with surprising agility, but the Harbinger scout adjusted instantly, matching their course. It's learning our patterns, Orion realized. Each evasion becomes predictable to... Cytheria nodded. The Harbingers assimilate knowledge. Strategy against them requires constant innovation. Random trajectories, Orion suggested. Not calculated evasions. Chaos theory applied to navigation. Lyrisand frowned. Our systems require logical parameters, which is why you've never defeated them, Dr. Zhang interrupted. She pulled a data drive from her pocket. Permission to interface with navigation? After a moment's hesitation, Cytheria nodded. Dr. Zhang plugged the drive into the command console. This contains algorithmic randomness patterns based on quantum fluctuations, true unpredictability. The ship lurched as the new program took effect, its movements becoming erratic, almost drunken. The Harbinger scout adjusted, then adjusted, again falling marginally behind with each course correction. It's working, Lyrisanda said, amazement evident in her voice. For now, Cytheria cautioned. But the scout is merely that, a scout. Its purpose is to gather information and transmit it to the hive. Orion watched the creature on the view screen, its tentacles rippling with apparent frustration. Can we prevent transmission? We must do more than that, Cytheria replied. We must feed it false information. Understanding dawned on Orion. Make them think we're vulnerable in ways we're not. And strong in ways we are not, Dr. Zhang added. Psychological warfare. Lyrisanda's expression hardened. The Harbingers have no psychology. They are a collective consciousness without emotion. Everything that lives fears death, Orion countered. Even if it doesn't know it fears. Cytheria smiled, her first since rebirth. This is why I chose Earth, this thinking. The Empress turned to the command console, her fingers dancing across interfaces too quickly to follow. We will engage the scout, not to destroy it, but to teach it. Teach it what? Lyrisanda asked. Cytheria's eyes gleamed with starlight. That this time their prey has teeth. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been transformed into a war forge. Massive Nilari construction vessels carved through planetoids, extracting rare minerals and processing them into alloys unknown to human science. Alongside them, Earth's orbital factories contributed precision components and software systems that the Nilari, for all their advanced technology, had never conceived. Orion stood before the view screen in the command center of Outpost Defiance, watching the construction of what humanity had come to call the Spear of Dawn, a weapon that might, if they were very lucky, delay humanity's extinction by a few precious months. The quantum entanglement matrix is stable, reported Admiral Indira through the comm. She had finally joined them in space after weeks of contentious political negotiations on Earth. But power generation remains insufficient. The Nylari antimatter reactors cannot sustain the energy requirements, Lyrisanda admitted, studying the schematics floating between them. We require an alternative approach. Dr. Zhang had been silent, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on her datapad. Now she looked up. What about solar energy? Lyrisanda scoffed. Primitive and inefficient. Not the way we're thinking, Dr. Zhang continued. Not collection from a single star, but harvesting from multiple stars simultaneously through artificial wormholes. A hush fell over the command center. Even the Empress, who had been communing with the ship's systems, turned to regard the human scientist. Theoretical quantum physics suggests it's possible, Dr. Zhang explained. The Nylari have mastered stable wormhole creation for transportation. What if we created thousands of micro-wormholes, each no larger than a molecule, connecting to the coronas of different stars? The heat transfer alone Lyrisanda began, would be channeled through crystalline matrices, Orion interrupted, catching the vision, like the Nylari exoskeletons but engineered to conduct energy rather than protect against it. Cytherea approached the holographic schematics, her movements fluid as water. This approach has merit. It would provide near-infinite energy without the instability of antimatter. But the engineering requirements, Lyrisanda protested. We've never attempted, which is precisely why the Harbingers won't anticipate it, Admiral Indira said firmly. Every previous encounter, they've adapted to your technologies because they're predictable evolutions of what came before. A proximity alert sounded, cutting through the discussion. On the main view screen, a fleet of Earth vessels appeared, approaching the outpost. Reinforcements? Orion asked hopefully. Admiral Indira's expression darkened. No, those are UER vessels, United Earth Resistance, the coalition opposing our alliance. They would attack their own kind? Lyrisanda asked, incredulous. They believe we've surrendered humanity's sovereignty, Admiral Indira explained. That we're helping the Nylari conquer Earth rather than save it. The lead vessel transmitted a message. A stern-faced woman appeared on screen. This is Commander Elise Riven of the UER. We demand the immediate return of Ambassador Voss and all Earth scientists. The Nylari presence in our system constitutes an invasion force, regardless of pretexts offered. Orion stepped forward. Commander Riven, we're facing an existential threat. The Harbingers. Convenient bogeyman, she interrupted. We have only the Nylari's word these Harbingers exist at all. Meanwhile, their warships orbit our world. We've shown you the evidence, Admiral Indira countered. The scout vessel we captured could be a Nylari creation designed to frighten us into submission. Commander Riven's voice was ice. You have 1 hour to comply before we take action. The transmission cut. Silence hung heavy in the command center. We don't have time for this, Dr. Zhang finally said. The main Harbinger fleet will reach the outer system within weeks. Empress Cytherea had been unnaturally still during the exchange. Now she moved to the center of the room, her crystalline form pulsing with internal light. I will speak with them, she announced. Your Majesty, Lyrisanda objected. These humans clearly harbor hostile intent. As did you, when you first arrived. At Earth, Cytherea reminded her. Fear motivates their resistance, not malice. Orion studied the Empress, the being he had first known as a simple flower. In the weeks since her transformation, he had glimpsed only fragments of the ancient intelligence that resided within her new form. Now, watching her radiate calm determination, he fully understood why civilizations bowed before her. I'll accompany you, he offered. Cytherea smiled. Of course, Guardian. After all, it was your blood that awakened me. Perhaps it is your words that will awaken them. Commander Riven's face betrayed no emotion as Cytherea materialized aboard the UER flagship. Orion followed through the quantum tunnel seconds later, fighting the momentary disorientation that accompanied molecular disassembly and reassembly. Impressive entrance, Riven said flatly. But theatrical displays don't answer our concerns. They stood in what had once been the ship's cargo hold, hastily converted to a negotiation chamber. Armed guards lined the walls, their weapons trained on the Empress despite assurances of diplomatic immunity. "I seek understanding, not surrender," Cytherea replied. Her voice carried no hint of condescension or impatience, only a profound serenity that somehow made the human guards lower their weapons slightly. "Your empire has conquered 17 star systems," Riven countered. "Why should Earth trust you?" "The other worlds joined willingly," Cytherea explained. "My previous incarnation offered protection, technology, advancement, in exchange for submission, in exchange for partnership," Orion corrected. "Commander, I've seen their historical archives. The Nylari Empire functions more like a federation than a dictatorship." Riven's gaze flickered between them. "And we should trust the word of a man who offers no proof beyond his own conviction?" Cytherea stepped forward, her crystalline skin catching the light. "Then perhaps you require more tangible evidence." Without warning, she began to transform. Her body seemed to dissolve into pure light, coalescing into a smaller form, the original star bloom that Orion had offered with his bleeding hand. The flower hovered between them, pulsing gently. "What is this?" Riven demanded, though her voice had lost its edge. "Her true essence," Orion explained, "stripped of power and pretense. I make myself vulnerable before you." Cytherea's voice echoed from the flower, as Ambassador Voss made himself vulnerable to save your world. "I could have remained in this form, peaceful, protected within Earth's botanical vaults. Instead, I chose rebirth to face the coming storm." "The Harbingers," Riven said, less dismissive now. "Allow me to show you." The star bloom expanded, its light enveloping the chamber. Suddenly, they stood among stars, a perfect holographic representation of the solar system. Beyond Neptune, a darkness gathered, pulsing and writhing like a malevolent storm cloud. "This is not simulation," Cytherea explained as her flower form floated through the starscape. "These are real-time quantum observations from our long-range scouts. The darkness resolved into thousands, no millions of entities similar to the scout they had encountered, but vastly larger. At their center hung something that defied description, a void that seemed to consume light itself." 3 weeks, Orion said quietly. "That's how long before they reach Mars." Commander Riven's composure cracked. "Even if what you're showing is real, how can we possibly stop this?" The starfield vanished. Cytherea resumed her humanoid form, but smaller now, less imposing, deliberately making herself Riven's height. "Not through conquest," she said. "Through transformation. As I transformed from flower to Empress, our separate civilizations must become something new together." Riven studied the Empress, then Orion. "You truly believe in this alliance?" It wasn't a question, but Orion answered anyway. "I've seen what either species alone cannot accomplish. Together we have a chance, slim but real." A junior officer rushed into the chamber, face pale. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from Neptune Research Station. They're under attack." The holographic display activated automatically, showing grainy footage of the human outpost. Tentacles of living darkness wrapped around habitation modules, crushing them. Researchers in spacesuits floated dead among the debris. "That's impossible," Riven whispered. "Your projection showed weak scout vessels," Cytherea realized. "Not the main hive. They've accelerated their timeline." Orion felt ice in his veins. "They detected our preparations." Riven stared at the destruction unfolding, then made a decision. She straightened her uniform and faced Cytherea. "What do you need from Earth?" "Everything," the Empress answered simply, "as we will give everything in return." Riven nodded once, sharply. "Open a channel to all UER vessels. New orders. Full integration with Nylari defense protocols effective immediately." As officers rushed to comply, Riven turned back to Orion. "I hope you haven't led us astray, Ambassador." Hope is all we have, he replied. That, and a flower, who became an empress. Jupiter's orbit had become humanity's Thermopylae. 300 Earth vessels stood alongside 70 Nylari warships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the solar system, and hopelessly outnumbered by the approaching Harbinger scouts. Orion watched from the command deck of the Bastion as Dr. Jung made final adjustments to the Spear of Dawn. The massive weapon, forged from asteroid metal and powered by the newly created stellar tap, extended from the flagship's bow like a silver needle aimed at the heart of the enemy. Stellar tap functioning at 97% capacity, Dr. Jung reported. Energy accumulation exceeding projections. Lyrisanda studied the tactical display. First wave approaching in 30 minutes. How much longer? The targeting system needs calibration, Dr. Jung replied. The energy beam must strike the precise center of the hive consciousness. Admiral Indira's voice came through the comm. Earth fleet in defensive formation. All civilian population centers evacuated to the far side of the moon. Cytherea stood motionless at the forward viewport, her crystalline form absorbing and refracting starlight. Since the confrontation with Commander Riven 3 days earlier, the Empress had grown increasingly withdrawn, spending hours in silent communion with the ship's systems. Your Majesty, Orion said quietly, approaching her. The fleet awaits your command. She turned to him, her eyes swirling with galaxies. Do you remember the day you offered me, Guardian? A simple flower purchased with your blood. I remember. I had drifted between stars for centuries, seeking a world worthy of rebirth. In your solar system, I found qualities that had grown, rare in the universe, compassion alongside determination, flexibility within strength. Human qualities, Orion said. Universal qualities, she corrected gently. Once possessed by the Nylari, before centuries of peace dulled their edges, once possessed by the Harbingers before they surrendered individuality for power. A proximity alert sounded. On the main view screen, the void between stars seemed to ripple and tear as the first Harbinger scouts emerged from subspace. All vessels, battle positions, Lyrisanda ordered. Defense grid online. Cytherea placed a crystalline hand on Orion's shoulder. What I am about to do, remember that it was my choice. Before he could question her, she moved to the center of the command deck. Her body began to glow with increasing intensity, light pouring from within her crystalline form. Empress? Lyrisanda asked, alarm evident in her voice. The stellar tap provides power, Cytherea explained, her voice resonating strangely. But the targeting system cannot identify the hive consciousness because it is shielded against conventional detection. Dr. Jung looked up from her console. We've tried every scanning frequency because it is like me, Cytherea continued, a consciousness that has experienced many forms, many rebirths. I can find it because I can recognize it. Understanding dawned on Orion. You're going to connect to the weapon. I will become the weapon. Lyrisanda stepped forward. Your Majesty, the energy channeled through the spear would destroy even your form. Yes. Cytherea's simple acknowledgement fell like a stone. There must be another way, Orion insisted. There is not. The Empress's form began to change, elongating and flowing toward the weapon systems. My consciousness will survive in the Starbloom essence. In time, I will be reborn. But this incarnation ends today. Before anyone could object further, Cytherea's body transformed completely, flowing into the ship's systems like liquid light. The Spear of Dawn illuminated, energy crackling along its length. Target acquired, came Cytherea's voice through the ship's speakers. Firing solution plotted directly to the hive consciousness. The first wave of Harbinger scouts had reached the defensive line. Earth and Nylari vessels fired in coordinated salvos, destroying some but barely slowing the advance. We need to fire now. Admiral Indira shouted through the comm as her vessel shuddered under attack. Orion placed his hand on the weapon console where Cytherea's energy now flowed. Thank you, he whispered. Not for my sacrifice. Her voice replied softly, heard only by him. For your flower. The spear of dawn activated with a silent flash. A beam of concentrated stellar energy, guided by the consciousness of an empress, lanced through space, bypassing the scout vessels, threading between planets, straight, toward a point of absolute darkness at the center of the approaching hive. The effect was instantaneous. The Harbinger scouts froze in space, their tentacles contorting in what could only be interpreted as agony. The hive consciousness, struck directly by Cytherea's attack, pulsed once, twice, then began to collapse inward. "It's working," Dr. Zhang exclaimed. The scouts nearest the hive began to disintegrate. Others turned, fleeing back toward the outer system. The unified consciousness that had guided them for millennia had been severed. On the command deck, systems began to overload. Consoles sparked and failed as the massive energy channeled through them exceeded design parameters. "Evacuation order," Lyrisanda commanded. "All personnel to escape vessels." As the command crew rushed to comply, Orion remained by the weapon console, watching the energy that had once been Cytherea pour into the final attack. "You need to go," her voice whispered around him. "I won't leave you," he replied. "You already saved me once, Guardian. Now save yourself." Lyrisand physically pulled him away as the console began to melt. She made her choice, Ambassador. Honor it by surviving. The last thing Orion saw before the emergency transport activated was a small point of violet light, like a flower blooming among the stars. 3 months later, Orion stood in the newly constructed Memorial Gardens on Mars, where Earth and Nylari worked side by side, establishing the first truly joint colony. Before him, in a special atmosphere-controlled chamber, grew a single star bloom, not Cytherea, but propagated from the same genetic line. "The terraforming proceeds ahead of schedule," Lyrisanda reported, joining him at the observation window. The former High Commander now served as joint governor of the Mars colony. The Nylari crystalline architecture adapts well to Martian conditions. And the Harbinger cleanup? The last scout vessels have been contained beyond the Kuiper Belt. Without the hive consciousness, they pose no organized threat. Orion nodded. Earth and the Nylari Empire had formalized their alliance with the Concordat of Luna, establishing the framework for cooperation that would extend beyond the solar system. Already, joint exploration vessels were preparing to investigate worlds that neither species had previously reached. "She would be pleased," Lyrisanda said, following Orion's gaze to the star bloom. "She'll know soon enough," he replied. "The botanical team estimates rebirth within a decade. Much faster than traditional cycles. She's learning from us." Orion smiled. Adaptation. Efficiency. As they turned to leave, Orion paused for a final look at the flower. In the right light, its petals seemed to pulse with an inner awareness, watching, waiting, growing stronger. He had offered a flower and saved his world. She had given up a kingdom and transformed 2 civilizations. Together they had written a new future among the stars, one where humanity stood tall beside ancient empires, where flowers became empresses and empires became gardens, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars something new was taking root.